again, thank you all. Well, we've certainly heard a lot of provocative and interesting speeches, everything from the biofuel that might go into making the drugs, the money that we hope will go into financing the making of the drugs, and Korea's particular possible advantages in this new world. So I'm going to start with a very practical question, but then as I said, please, anyone feel free to raise your hands, and as well fellow panelists also. But I think that if there were one question that a business person would probably want to ask after hearing all about this cutting edge research and, you know, possibilities for the future would be, you know, where should I put my money? We've got all this genomics research that so far has not produced, you know, a tremendous amount of new drugs here. So when are we going to see something from this research, and which disease targets are most likely to be the first to market using this kind of research? So I thought I would start with Professor Stock, who talked so much about the research this morning, and then we'll just, I guess, go around that way. Okay.
I think that one of the most interesting things in terms of deciding where to go with this is what's happening over the next 5 to 10 years. And I think that while there are enormous opportunities in generics and potentially biologics, I think that's very interesting. It feels to me that it is in the basic research that is really going to yield the extraordinary value, because when you start to move into the realms where you're losing a lot of value in the mature pharmaceutical industry, which was described in the last talk, the law, things going off patents, that really is a loss of enormous value for those pharmaceutical entities, but the value that goes into the competing companies that are producing generics is not as substantial as that. And it's very interesting in the drug development arena, in that you have a challenge in that you always are sort of eating your own young in a way, and that as pharmaceuticals get better, as you're able to address more diseases, that you have to, there's constantly an emphasis on cost. And so there's a necessity to develop something that is even better beyond that, because there are a lot of situations where new drugs come out and they really are not, the payment, they're not incorporated into the payment structures of various healthcare systems. So I see that some of the most interesting sort of new things that will occur is that a lot of the information about that we're getting in recent time, very recently, about new therapeutics, is that there's been a failure in a lot of the directed, targeted therapeutics that have arisen, and that is going to be a little bit slower. But there's a lot of knowledge about what's happening with the with a lot of botanicals and other kinds of agents that have been the source of a lot of the innovation in the past 20 years, or up until about 10 years ago, I would say. And I think that there's going to be some things that are very, very safe and can be used for chronic diseases, where there is still an opportunity for drugs and interventions that can be used for the population at large. So it's really a disease area that we can think of. One of these is neurodegenerative diseases. This is a very, very challenging issue, but there's very little that is available there. There are a lot of new possibilities that are still at an early stage. There are metabolic diseases, which are very, very significant. And I see those as some of the most important areas in the emerging, that are sort of going to emerge. So.
Yeah, Mr. Su?
앞으로 이제 집중과 투자를 해야 할 분야는 어디냐 하는 얘기부터 시작을 하겠습니다. 사실은 투자를 할 분야는 투자 이익이 보이는 데입니다. 그래서 제가 보기에는 복잡한 사안일수록 단순하게 생각하는 게 정답일 겁니다. 그래서 사실은 연구 과제가 하나의 성공용 제품이 되는 데는 통계적으로 보면 10,000분의 1의 확률을 가지고 있습니다. 그러면 학교에서는 10,000개의 과제가 연구돼야 되고 그리고 검증의 과정을 거쳐서 한 개의 제품이 나오는 이 사이클이 끊어지면 안 되겠죠. 그 다음에 최근 들어서 아까도 제가 얘기했지만 R&D가 주춤하는 게 아니라 그동안 동일한 투자비를 들였을 때 사업성이 있는 아이템이 많이 이제 사용됐다는 겁니다. 그래서 유념하게 볼 것은 이 제약 분야에서는 개발비를 감수할 수 있는 미국이 됐던 유럽이 됐던 전 세계 FDA의 가이드라인의 변화가 보이느냐 안 보이느냐, 이게 잠재성 R&D 제품이 상업화될 확률을 키울 것이냐 못 키울 것이냐 하는 거와 관련이 있다고 생각합니다. 그래서 이런 추세를 보고 사실은 투자를 할 때 우선 그런 부위의 변화가 보이지 않을 때는 현존하는 제품들을 생산해서 이익을 내는 분야가 투자할 분야일 것이고, 그런 변화가 보일 때는 R&D 과제 쪽에 투자의 비중을 키워나갈 부위라고 생각합니다. 그리고 이제 맞춤 이야기라는 얘기를 많이 하고 있습니다. 앞으로 올 추세고 막지 못할 추세죠. 그런데 맞춤 의학은 또 뭐가 관련이냐면 환자들한테 제공하는 가격하고 관련이 있습니다. 아무리 좋은 세라픽이라도 아무리 좋은 약이라도 고객이 바잉할 수 있는 캐파를 넘어서는 제품은 상업화가 될 수 없습니다. 그래서 이제 그 분야도 연구할 과제이긴 하지만 그 코스트를 낮추기 위해서 많은 학교에서 연구도 필요할 거고 기업의 도전도 필요할 거고 또 역시 규제기관의 또 새로운 변화도 필요할 거라 생각합니다. 그래서 지금 현재 흘러가는 흐름 자체는 변화가 있지는 않을 거라고 생각합니다. 다만 이런 몇 가지 허들이 연구할 과제의 방향을 설정할 것이고 투자할 분야를 결정할 것이고 그리고 기업이 기업 활동을 영위하는 분야를 잡을 수 있을 거라고 생각합니다. 그리고 그러면 앞으로는 맞춤형으로 가는 것을 막지는 못할 것이다. 그렇지만 그 시대를 단축하기 위해서 각 분야가 어떤 노력을 할 거냐에 따라서 집중할 분야가 선택되지 않겠는가 이렇게 생각합니다. 오케이.
Okay, thank you. I definitely want to get back to the issue of regulatory framework, but first let's get the other two panelists to talk about this question.
Thank you. I think that I think if you're talking about investor preferences, they change from time to time, depending on what is excitable in terms in the public markets. Unfortunately, the discrepancy in the number of interesting projects available now for investors and what investors really want to invest in are different. In that, what I mean is that that there are a lot of interesting drug development projects in Asia which are not being funded simply because investors tend not to take the risk of investing in a developmental drug before proof of concept, and we're talking about a phase 2 clinical trial. The investor preferences right now, in Asia at least, would be services, healthcare services, top of the tree. In fact, a lot of the healthcare services transactions are very heavily bid. Secondly, I would say that medical technology is also reasonably high up the list right now, and unfortunately, right down the list would be drug development. It's quite tough in Asia at least, to finance a company with a preclinical portfolio.
So I'll put it in a little bit different and more practical way. So let's assume that I have $30 million to invest in the healthcare sector. I would put $10 million on a company who is focusing on natural products, derivatized drug developments. So what I mean by that is the plant extracts I talked about, but there are many chemicals that are already known to be effective on particular disease or disease states. So I would invest on those companies because they will be the one who will come to the market much more faster than others. And the other 10 million will go to a long-term investment that is a personalized medicine company where I decided, okay, I may end up losing whole $10 million, but if it hits, it's going to be a big return. So it's high risk, high return type investment. And so the one goes to the particular disease of family, that is metabolic disease, as Greg said, because that's the ultimate form of many diseases. And thus, if you cure some of these metabolic diseases, actually it cures other types of disease. So hopefully this is a more practical type of investment.
All right. Well, I hope your neighbor is listening over there for investment ideas. Let me see if anyone first from the audience has any particular questions at this point. Feel free to raise your hand at any time. Then in that case, maybe I'll follow up on what Dr. Su brought up, Mr. Su brought up about the regulatory framework, because I know that's a very important issue to business and investors. In the U.S., as Professor Stock was saying this morning, there's complaints that the FDA is too strict, takes too long, too cautious, too risk averse. And also I know that, Dr. Hyun earlier today was saying that one of the problems in Korea is a weak regulatory structure for healthcare and other businesses. So it'd be interesting, as a Korean business, you've got to worry about the Korean FDA, but you also have to worry about the U.S. FDA, which is the biggest market. You want to sell in the U.S. You have to worry about Europe, second biggest market, or not any longer, I guess China is soon going to be the biggest market. So maybe we have to worry about the probably non-existent regulation in China. But I'd love to hear a comparison among these various, regulatory agencies, of these 4 different ones, to the degree that the panel members can compare them, and what they would like to see from the ideal regulatory agency. So, Mr. Su, maybe we will start with you, because you brought it up. How would you compare, to the best of your knowledge, the Korean, U.S., European regulatory agencies, and what would you like to see in an ideal government drug regulatory agency?
제가 패널로 참여한 사람 중에서는 현재 이 산업을 하는 사람이다 보니까 입장 곤란한 거는 내가 많이 답변할 것 같은데 사실은 FDA는 우리나라 말로 말하면 식약청이라고 하는 데입니다. 식약청은 승인기관이고 감독기관입니다. 그 다음에 한국의 식약청은 미국, 유럽과 무엇이 다르냐? 그것은 한국이 미국, 유럽과 상황이 달랐던 겁니다. 미국과 유럽은 신약들이 많이 개발이 됐었고 한국은 그동안 제네릭 약들이 많이 개발이 됐었습니다. 그래서 승인의 과정은 미국과 유럽과 한국이 별 차이가 없습니다. 다만 오디트하고 감독하는 부위에 대해서는 한국의 제약회사들이 아직 규모가 작았기 때문에 오디트과 감독하는 부위에 대해서 문제를 지적하고 문제를 복원시키는데 유연성이 많았던 겁니다. 그러니까 규제가 약했다기보다는 저희 같은 경우는 미국 FDA, EMA FDA, 코리아 FDA를 다 똑같이 만납니다. 그럼 차이가 뭐냐? 미국 FDA, EMA FDA는 만나기 위해서 우리가 레터를 보냅니다. 그럼 오라고 그래요. 오면 1시간 얘기하는데 1억 원입니다. 그래서 FDA를 딱 만나면 제일 먼저 시간을 카운팅합니다. 그래서 1시간 1억 내면 딱 1시간 만나줘요. 대신 거기서 그 사람이 했던 얘기는 그 회사의 공식, 그 기관의 공식 답변입니다. 한국 FDA는 찾아가면 다 만나줘요. 그리고 돈 안 받아요. 그런데 그러다 보니까 사견을 많이 얘기해요. 어느 게 좋은 거냐? 전 잘 모르겠어요. 지난주에 일본 FDA 만나러 가는데 일본은 1시간에 2억 원입니다. 그래서 우리 직원들이 FDA랑 미팅하러 간다 그러길래 제가 그랬어요. 원가 절감하는 의미에서 모아서 가라 그랬거든요. 그리고 또 FDA 미팅하러 간다면 제가 하는 말이 있어요. 영어를 빨리 해라. 왜냐면 초당 얼만데 그런 얘기를 해야. 그래서 한국 FDA가 미국 유럽보다 사실은 장점은 유연합니다. 그런데 그러다 보니까 사실은 그런데 미국이나 유럽에서 한번 지적을 당하면 회사의 존폐가 결정됩니다. 그다음에 한국 FDA는 회사한테 서바이벌할 기회를 줘야. 그거는 한국 제약회사가 크지 않았기 때문에 그렇습니다. 영세하지 않았기 때문에. 그래서 사실은 한국, 유럽, 미국이 기본적으로 가지고 있는 프레임은 같다고 생각합니다. 다만 서로 장단점이 있죠. 그 다음에 앞으로 이제 전 세계 FDA들은 어떤 고민을 해야 될 것이냐. FDA는 두 가지의 양면을 가지고 있습니다. 안정성을 확보해야 되는 부위를 가지고 있고요. 그러면 강화를 해야 됩니다. 그 다음에 사실은 아까 말씀드렸듯이 이제 개발 비용이 감소하지 않았을 때는 새로운 변화에 큰 허들이 된다고 했는데 그런 부위에서 어떻게 유연성을 줄 것이냐 하는 부위가 있습니다. 그리고 전 세계 FDA들은 다 그 주제를 놓고 고민하고 검토하고 있는데 제 개인적인 사견으로 말하면 쉽게 그 변화는 일어나지 않을 거라고 봅니다. 그 변화를 일으키기 위해서는 증명해야 되는 객관적 실험이 너무 많이 있어요. 그런데 그 변화가 앞으로 우리의 생명공학이나 제약산업이 가지고 있는 많은 발전 가능성이라는 부위가 조기에 얼마만큼 상업화될 수 있을 것이냐, 그것이 환자에 적용될 수 있으냐 하는 길을 관련돼서 중요한 팩터라고 생각하고, 다만 이 부위를 연구하고 이 부위에 대한 사업을 하는 분들은 그것이 지연될 수 있다는 전제하에서 하는 것이 답 아닌가 이렇게 생각을 합니다.
I would like to follow up and ask you a question on the KFDA. You mentioned that the regulations are basically very similar with all of these agencies. It seems to me that the biggest challenge is to get to proof of concept, because funding early stage research and drug development is very, very risky. And so it's easy to talk about an area, but if you really try and think of a company that you're going to invest in, very, very difficult. And the issue, which is very right, that until you reach proof of concept, you don't have as much value. So it seems to me, given the receptivity of the Korean FDA to speak with companies in Korea, to be very cooperative, to be very interactive, which is very different than throughout the world. What do you think is the possibility for actually creating a capability for much more easily trying to reach a proof of concept? Because once you've reached proof of concept, if you can do that whether with a foreign company that's working with a Korean partner or with a Korean company, then you have enormous value that can be monetized, and you can interact with other agencies and draw in a lot of other resources. So I would like to, I would wonder what your comment on that is.
지금 그 스탁 박사님이 질문하셨던 거 많은 타국적 제약회사 사람들한테 제가 받는 질문입니다. 그런데 한국 FDA를 그 참 파악이 잘 안 돼 있기 때문에 사실 어떻게 만나야 될까 하는 고민을 많이 해요. 그래서 제가 그때마다 했던 답변을 그냥 그대로 드리겠습니다. 미국, 유럽, 한국 FDA가 하고자 하는 목적이 같습니다. 다만 방법이 한국인 스타일이냐, 미국인 스타일이냐, 유럽인 스타일이냐예요. 그렇지만 모든 프로토콜과 SOP는 같습니다. 그리고 또 다른 거는 바로 뭐냐면 그 차이입니다. 그 한국은 FDA만 그러는 게 아니라 만나달라고 그러는데 돈 받고 만나주는 한국인이 아무도 없어요. 그래서 우리나라는 변호사도 성금 내고 만나지 않거든요. 실제적으로. 이게 문화의 차이지 한국 FDA 차이가 아닙니다. 실제적으로. 그래서 저희들이 일하는 것을 봤을 때는 한국 FDA도 어느 외국 기업이든지 직접 컨택을 해서 외국 기업이기 때문에 불이익을 받을 수 있는 부위는 없다고 생각합니다. 다만 랭귀지상에서 그 서로 언더스탠을 하는데 좀 시간이 걸리는 부위는 있겠지만, 그래서 그런 부위에 봤을 때 그렇게 큰 허들이 되지 않을 것이고, 그리고 또 한국의 FDA 때문에 한국의 제약회사들이 미국이나 유럽보다 덜 까다로운 룰을 적용받아서 상대적으로 유리함을 입고 있다고 생각하실 필요는 없을 거라고 생각합니다.
So maybe I didn't express myself well enough. What I meant was not that what the existing system is. I realize that all the regulations are very similar. What I meant is that there's a recognition in the United States, for example, that the regulatory framework is in many ways an obstacle to the development of new therapeutics because it takes a lot to get into humans. There's a lot of money that goes forward to try and see whether something is going to have efficacy or in humans because the animal models usually aren't very good. And so, but it's a very rigid system. And what I was wondering is whether you think that the Korean system might have the flexibility to look at some of these solutions and actually sort of leapfrog the regulatory structures that are operant elsewhere to try and facilitate reaching a proof of concept and proof of principle in a way that is more effective than anywhere else in the world.
한국 FDA는 사실은 신약에 관련돼서는 미국 유럽 FDA보다 사례가 많지 않습니다. 그래서 FDA가 어떤 걸 승인하는 과정은 케이스 스터디가 많습니다. 그래서 신약 쪽 같은 경우에서는 뭐 미국 유럽보다 우리가 유연성을 가지고 있다고 보기는 좀 어렵습니다. 그래서 대개 저희들이 한국 FDA랑 일을 할 때는 그 EMEA FDA 의견, 미국 FDA 의견들을 같이 놓고 토의합니다. 그래서 신약에 대해서는 한국 FDA가 미국 유럽 FDA보다 유연성을 가지고 있다기보다는 사실은 좀 경험이 많지 않기 때문에 판단하는데 좀 더 많은 고민을 하고 있다. 이렇게 생각하시면 되겠습니다. 그래서 신약비는 미국이나 유럽 FDA보다 우리 한국이 더 유리한 면이나 유연한 부위가 없습니다. 그건 딱 한마디로 사례가 많지 않기 때문에 그렇습니다. Okay.
Did either of you want to talk about the FDAs and the regulatory agencies? I know they're not quite in your usual areas of work, but did you want to say anything?
Just to say that what I think investors like to see is more of a balance, between safety and efficacy. So I think the agency has really swung a lot towards more focusing on safety and really questioning a lot of what appears to be very good data on efficacy. So certainly I would like to see a better balance between the two.
But that would be more coming from the drug companies, or is there a role that the regulatory agencies would play in achieving that balance?
I think the questions that they ask might be, or initially to make perhaps make clearer, or what the requirements might be, But I think you make a good point, and it's important for the companies to work with the agencies as well to come up with the required data.
I do want to just clarify one thing that you said, Mr. Su. When you mentioned it costs a lot of money to send people to talk with the Japanese FDA or the European, I assume you're referring to just the cost of travel, right? Or is there some other cost involved?
FDA는 전 세계 FDA 공이 모든 분야의 전문가를 확보하고 있지 않습니다. 그래서 질문사항이 들어왔을 때는 그 분야에 답변할 수 있는 전문 인력을 같이 인바이트해서 미팅을 합니다. 그렇기 때문에 미팅을 원하는 기업은 대개 페이를 하고 그것을 버젯으로 해서 많은 전문가들이 초대돼서 미팅이 되는 겁니다. 그 다음에 한국은 왜 그 부위가 비용을 받지 않느냐면 사실은 한국은 정부가 그 서비스를 좀 더 많은 기업을 촉진하기 위해서 정부 자금으로 하고 있는 겁니다. 그래서 그 비용은 FDA가 그 많은 인력을 다 확보하고 있지 않기 때문에 쓰는 비용이라고 생각하면 되고 그것은 궁금한 사항이 있거나 미팅을 원하는 기업이 부담하는 것이다 이렇게 판단하면 되겠습니다.
Okay, thank you. Again, I want to see if there are any questions from the audience or the fellow panelists before I keep mouthing my own.
I have a question for Mr. Fu. You have looked at a lot of investments. You've looked at a lot of investments, and you've throughout Asia. And I was wondering if you could compare the environment in Korea with that in some of the other possible areas, and sort of what are the advantages that you might see to those different regions for, actually developing new pharmaceuticals, and where one might locate. You said companies are moving to Asia and are faced with this sort of choices of where to locate.
Yeah, I think I mentioned that we're in fact looking at financing two companies making a move from the US to Singapore. I think that the factors that are pushing them or pulling them would be, firstly, they certainly cite the difficulties of the regulatory agencies in the US as one reason. They're a medical technology company, so we're talking about 510(k) approvals, and they also believe that the markers of the future are in Asia. I mean, if you look at the number of, for example, the number of PTCA procedures done in the US on a per population basis, they're far ahead of what's happening in the rest of Asia, particularly China. So the market for that kind of device is growing in excess of 20% per annum. So it's becoming an extremely important market. So the market access is one. Also, funding is another. The Singapore government, for example, has some fairly attractive packages for companies with interesting intellectual property. And I think the third thing would be that Singapore is actually quite an easy place to live and attract talent. It's constantly been ranked in various surveys by expats, at least, to be one of the easiest places to live in Asia.
I'm fascinated by the reasons you came up with why investors would choose Singapore, and I was expecting, and maybe we should broaden it beyond Singapore. Why would investors choose any particular company or Korea? I was expecting to hear things like universities and infrastructure, or in terms of a particular company. Obviously the potential market size of its product, or the viability of its research so far. So I don't know, what are the key factors that investors do look for? And I guess the second part would be, is it different when they look at Asia versus other parts of the world, or different when they look at Korea versus other countries? Do you want to start with that, Dr. Fu?
I mean, the factors I mentioned were, not from the investor's point of view. I think if you're seeking the investor's point of view,
yes,
then, we would look for, certainly that the science is very important, and how the intellectual property around the science is protected. We really want to look at the people who are doing the project. I think it's unfortunate that first-timers, no matter how good their project sounds, often find it very difficult to get their projects financed. And serial entrepreneurs who've had, both scientific and commercial success repeatedly 4 or 5 times, tend to find their projects very easily financed. So the people behind that are extremely important. Obviously, the plan. What is the business plan, and how does the entrepreneur or the company intend to commercialize? What is the path to commercialization? Also, when you talk to a first-time entrepreneur versus someone who's done it several times, the difference between what you can get out of the first 10 minutes of a conversation between the two is quite enormous. And I think it's fair to say that, the investors can make up their minds within 10 minutes of meeting somebody whether they want to proceed further with a meeting. Because particularly for investors who see a lot of deal flow, you need to make up your mind pretty quickly what projects you want to pursue, because each project takes a considerable amount of time and effort in terms of the due diligence and so on. So I think these are the realities of investing, or of being an entrepreneur. I think everyone believes that their project is great. It's the best project. They have the next cure for cancer. They have the next cure for Alzheimer's, or they have the next cure for arthritis, whatever it might be. They might well have, but the way that the investors perceive their companies and the technology might be completely different.
I find it very, very interesting that the landscape, the larger landscape for the developments of new therapeutics and such, is extraordinarily positive. I mean, the things that are occurring in basic research and in the translation of that into the early stages of therapeutic development is provoking an enormous amount of excitement. I think a comment of, everybody is coming and saying they have something that really would work for this disease area or that disease area is very real, and it's not that these people are completely mistaken about that. What's interesting that is at the same time, when you, Fran, when you were saying, where would you invest? Well, it's very hard to see investment in early stage therapeutics, because the pathway from the early stages of therapeutic development into actually having a drug that is going to be successful on the market are enormous. They're extraordinary. And it's almost as though there's this enormous amount of activity which is generating all these possibilities, but there are so many obstacles placed between there and actually having therapeutics. And part of the reason for that is that there is not an appreciation in general in the regulatory environment of the enormous benefits that would attend, not that there's not an appreciation, but there aren't incentives for creating the diffuse benefits that would attend the development of a new therapeutic. It takes a long time. And it seems to me that when you talk about international competitiveness, the region that can break through those obstacles, which have been erected largely in the past generation, in the past 25 years, to moving these early stage possibilities into human trials in an ethical way of seeing what works and what really doesn't, is going to transform the nature of medicine, because there will be other countries and other regions will have to follow suit, and there's sort of this backlog of enormous possibility which is very difficult to realize, and so that's something that is very a quandary, and I think it's why Dr. Lee was saying, where I would put my $10 million is in natural products, because here we have things that we know, many of them that we know are safe, and there are pathways for getting to market without going through the FDA and other regulatory authorities. And I would assume that that's most of the reason that you're saying that, in addition to the fact that you have sort of uncontrolled clinical trials that have been occurring for thousands of years that have suggested efficacy, even if we don't know if it's real, but at least there are possibilities there. And here was when people could do clinical experiments very easily, and that's essentially been stopped today.
Well, as you point out, people using things for thousands of years actually aren't clinical experiments. I mean, they're not controlled, with
uncontrolled clinical, getting uncontrolled clinical evidence. It's amazing. I'll tell you, for example, we and the company that I founded or co-founded in just outside of Princeton, we were developing a whole new class of anti-inflammatories that is involved with G protein signaling, is very, very exciting, and there are a whole bunch of therapeutic areas that it could move into. It's very, very safe, and we decided to go into topical applications initially, because with topical applications we could produce cosmetics that do not go through the FDA. And so we picked some of the initial chemistries and developed them as cosmetics, because then we can put them in humans and demonstrate that this class of molecules works and is safe. And in fact, we have some initial revenue beginning to come from a Japanese partnership where we're in the cosmeceutical business, and at the same time now we're applying for drugs. But we have evidence that these things work. Otherwise, we couldn't have afforded to do that. And so the same sorts of things are applying elsewhere. You have to get these into humans. And with those things, the first person that we put it into was actually myself. We put it on, I created irritation and put it on my arm, put it on to see if it works, because you just don't know. And that was the rule that used to be 50 years ago. Everybody would do that. They'd try something out when they got enough confidence in it that they wanted to see whether it worked. And there is really no replacement for that. If you have to spend $10 million to try and see whether something can have any even suggestion of success, even though you're quite confident it's going to be safe, it creates a huge barrier to the development of therapeutics. So that's the kind of thing I meant.
Okay. I did want to ask if anybody else wanted to talk about what investors look for.
그러면 저는 여기 계신 청중들이 이해하시기 좋게 지금까지 하셨던 걸 좀 통역해서 쉽게 풀어서 이야기를 하는 각도로 하겠습니다. 오해할 수 있는 부위가 있을 것 같아서 말씀을 드리는데, 투자라고 하면 크게 자본적 투자가 있고 사업적 투자가 있습니다. 자본적 투자는 주로 인베스터 뱅킹을 하시는 분들이 하시는 겁니다. 그거는 사실은 그 자본적 이익을 받기 위해서 하는 거예요. 사업적 투자는 사업가들이 자기 기업에 투자하는 게 사업적 투자입니다. 싱가포르는 그 케미칼이 됐던 바이오로직이 됐던 제약산업을 그 국가에서 집중적으로 유치하기 위한 전략을 오래전부터 가지고 있었고요. 그리고 많은 정책을 가지고 있습니다. 그리고 많은 외국 기업들이 싱가포르에 본사가 갔건 공장이 갔건 연구소가 갔습니다. 그러면 싱가포르에는 많은 국제기업이 가는데 한국에는 왜 안 오는가를 얘기하겠습니다. 그것은 한국과 싱가포르의 나라의 상황의 차이입니다. 우리는 싱가포르 같은 경우에는 기업을 유치하는 공무원들이 기업 유치를 위한 자기가 업무를 하는 법적 가이드라인을 가지고 있지 않아요. 그러니까 공무원이 어느 기업을 만나서 보니까 이 기업은 상당히 좋다. 그러면 세금을 20년간 감면해 줄 수도 있고요. 10년간 감면해 줄 수도 있고 5년간 감면해 줄 수도 있어요. 그 부분에 대해서 정당한 보고 절차를 거쳐서 결정했다고 하면 그것을 가지고 문책하지 않습니다. 그래서 그거는 세금도 있고요. 땅을 주는 것도 있고요. 심지어는 투자하는 돈도 정부에서 줄 수 있습니다. 종업원의 교육도 할 수 있고요. 물론 모든 분야를 그렇게 하는 게 아니죠. 제약과 바이오텍 분야가 싱가포르이 그런 선택을 한 분야 중에 하나입니다. 근데 한국 기업 같은 경우에는 그렇게 법적 근거를 풀어놔있지는 않아요. 그래서 한국은 사실은 아무리 좋은 회사가 오든 아무리 좋은 업종이 오든 우리의 법적 근거 범위 안에서 할 수 있습니다. 그래서 그것이 뭐 전국 어디를 가든 그러다 보니까 그 국가가 가지고 있는 이 선택한 업종에 대한 국가가 가지고 있는 인센티브 제도가 싱가포르이 상당히 좋다. 이렇게 생각하시면 되겠습니다. 물론 한국 정부도 그런 고민을 많이 하고 있는데 형평성의 원칙 때문에 다른 업종하고 형평성을 얘기하고 지역 간의 형평성을 얘기하기 때문에 상대적으로 불리하다는 것을 이 정부도 잘 알고 있고 그리고 우리 기업들도 잘 알고 있다. 이렇게 생각하시면 되겠습니다. 그 다음에 투자라고 하는 부위도 뭐 막연하게 얘기했던 거를 구체적으로 정리해서 할게요. 그 의학 분야를 말씀드려서 말하면 약이 됐던 바이오로직이 됐던 의학 쪽의 기술은 50%의 기술이에요. 절반의 기술입니다. 과학자는 예상되는 효능은 얘기할 수 있어도 부작용을 얘기할 수 없어요. 그 부작용은 임상이라는 절차를 거쳐야만 알 수 있습니다. 그래서 대개 모든 연구 과제는 그동안의 연구의 확률의 통계치를 벗어나지 못합니다. 예를 들어서 학교에서 연구 논문을 작성하셔서 특허를 받았을 때는 우리가 성공 확률을 10,000분의 1로 봅니다. 그리고 그것이 동물 임상을 거쳐서 상당히 임프루브된 데이터가 나왔을 때는 5%의 성공 확률로 봅니다. 그리고 인체 임상을 거쳐서 성공적 데이터가 나왔을 때는 25% 확률로 봅니다. 그리고 인체 임상을 2상까지 거쳤을 때는 1상은 독성과 부작용을 보는 겁니다. 또 2상은 인체에 투여하는 양은 얼마나 할 것이냐를 kontrol하는 거예요. 그 부위를 45% 봅니다. 3상이 잘 끝났을 때 그거는 부작용과 효능을 다 보는 겁니다. 75% 봅니다. 그 얘기는 무슨 말이냐면 인류가 지금까지 개발한 모든 약은 부작용이 제로인 약은 없습니다. 다만 3상이 끝났을 때 이 정도의 부작용이라면 이 정도의 효능 때문에 허가를 할 것이냐 말 것이냐는 마지막 허가 관청의 판단 때문에 3상이 성공적으로 끝나도 100%는 아닙니다. 그리고 90년대 말 2000년대 초까지는 많은 제약회사가 사실은 신약의 성공 확률이 높을 거라고 생각했어요. 그래서 그때는 연구 논문만 써놔도 특허만 내놔도 회사 차리면 다 투자했어요. 그리고 나스닥 같은 데 다 상장됐었어요. 그래서 거기서 나온 부자들도 많았습니다. 그 얘기는 무슨 말이냐면 사주는 제약회사가 있었습니다. 그런 것을. 그런데 2000년대 중반 들면서 제약회사들이 해보니까 성공 확률이 무척 떨어지는 거예요. 그러다 보니까 요새는 안 사는 겁니다. 안 사다 보니까 벤처 캐피탈이 그동안 그러면 미국이나 유럽에서 벤처 캐피탈은 어떻게 투자했냐? 그 제품을 사겠다는 바이어가 있는 기업한테 투자했지 그냥 사업 설명서 두고 투자해 준 적은 많지 않았습니다. 그런데 이제는 사주는 빈도수가 낮아지다 보니까 요새는 주문이 어떻게 오고 있냐면 임상 1상까지는 해가지고 와라. 2상까지는 해가지고 와라 이렇게 주문을 합니다. 그래서 뭐 마우스 실험한 데이터 가지고서는 그거 라이센스 인하겠다는 제약회사 지금 거의 없습니다. 그건 여기 계시는 분들한테 제가 냉정하게 말하면 기대하시면 안 됩니다. 그래서 어떤 분야를 연구하셔서 투자를 받기를 원하신다. 그러시면 1상까지는 할 각오로 하셔야 됩니다. 그럼 1상까지 하는 데는 얼마의 비용이 드냐? 연구 과제별로 다른데 1,000만 불에서 1,500만 불 듭니다. US불로. 그리고 1상까지 해서도 반응을 안 보이면 2상까지 가야 됩니다. 그때는 US불로 3,000만 불에서 4,000만 불 듭니다. 그런데 예를 들어서 뭐 몇 억 가지고 R&D를 한다. 그거는 현실성이 없습니다. 그건 저 같은 경우도 라이센스 못합니다. 실제. 그래서 막연하게 투자라고 얘기하시는데 처음서부터 어떤 R&D 하는 부위에 대한 스타트를 하실 때는 검증의 절차까지 갈 수 있는 재원을 마련하셔서 하셔야 됩니다. 그리고 그 마련되는 재원 중에는 정부의 지원 자금도 있을 것이고 그리고 그 자기를 스폰서링 해주는 사람들도 있을 것이지만 처음서부터 그것이 없이 투자를 기대하신다면 그건 성공 확률이 높지 않을 것이다. 그리고 앞으로도 이 추세가 변하지는 않을 것 같습니다. 90년대 말 2000년대 초에 같은 현상은 다시 발생하지 않을 것이다. 그 이유가 모든 다국적 회사들이 지금 현재 경영 환경이 어렵습니다. 그러다 보니까 전해식으로 그 바잉을 쉽게 하지는 않는다. 그래서 말씀하셨던 것들을 이 청중들 중에 이쪽에 관심 있는 분들한테는 그 피부에 와닿게끔 느끼시기 위해서 제가 현재의 상황을 정리해서 말씀을 드린 겁니다. 그래서 한 가지 변화한 것은 그겁니다. 그동안 라이센스인을 해가던 제약회사들이 과거에는 검증이 덜 된 제품도 라이센스인을 하다가 최근에는 본인들이 R&D의 석세스 레이트가 낮아지고 경영 환경이 좋아지지 않다 보니까 최소한도 인체 임상의 1상 이상은 요구하고 있다. 그렇기 때문에 1상 이상까지는 투자를 받기 위해서는 라이센스 아웃을 하기 위해서는 필히 그 초기 연구를 하시는 그룹이 투자할 재원을 마련하셔서 하시는 것이 성공 확률이 크다. 저는 이렇게 생각을 합니다. 그리고 이 추세는 당분간 크게 변하지 않을 것이다. 이렇게 봅니다.
So I believe that your statement that the trend won't change in the foreseeable future is unlikely to be true. And the reason for that is that what you've described is a system that is impeding enormously the development of new therapeutics. And that's because the system is, or 50 million is, I think, a little bit higher than is needed for early stage trials, and 1 in 10,000 is referring to compounds as opposed to programs, for example. But there is a strong need in terms for the development of new therapeutics. There's a need in the healthcare system, and frankly, you have a very unstable environment, and I think it was driven by the complacency of the FDA and the European authorities as well, in that it's sort of like, well, we can think that drugs are going to be safe. We can guarantee safety, and there's been an unusual focus on safety, I believe. And because the political ramifications, if you make a mistake and somebody goes out and gets injured, are significant for them personally. But what it does is it interferes with the development of new therapeutics, which it's becoming easier and easier, and there are more and more of those that are looking interesting. And so it's an unstable equilibrium, because if anyone actually makes the move to take things to clinical trials so that you're not saying, well, you have to raise your own money, but it costs $50 million, and maybe you can get government money, or maybe you can do this or that, which is, if that's a description of the landscape, then it means that if there's any region or any area that takes the bold steps of creating mechanisms by which you can get into clinical trials more easily, and there were many mechanisms for doing that 25 years ago, then they will be enormously successful. You described in your first slide that Korea was 93rd in the pharmaceutical arena, and you described number 1 in shipbuilding and number 1 in electronics, I believe. And the implication when I looked at that was, I bet that Korea would like to be number 1 in pharmaceuticals. And you're describing a situation in which I don't understand any way that Korea can get to that point. And yet it seems to me that there will be a region of the world, and that's what I was suggesting earlier, where there are some changes that are made that allow a breakthrough into the development of some of the new therapeutics that are arising. And so, and that's in natural products as well, as Dr. Lee said, and I think that it's very clear that those possibilities exist today. So that's all that I was suggesting. And I realize it's a very difficult environment, and that's a challenge that's faced globally.
Well, there's, I think, 2 sort of interlocking conflicts. One is the sort of vicious circle that you described, where it takes money to run your clinical trials, but you can't attract money until you have run a certain level of clinical trials. And then there's the conflict that I think both Mr. Su and Dr. Fu have suggested with the regulators, where, the succinct phrase that everyone uses is safety and efficacy both, where the FDA and the other regulators are trying to balance, indeed, they know their job is to get new drugs on the market, but they also have a mandate to make sure they're safe, and no one expects a drug to be completely safe. All drugs have side effects. Aspirin has side effects, and that's about the oldest, chemical drug that's been used. But to balance the side effects versus the intended effects of the drug. So we've got this vicious circle interlocking with this difficult balance, and it's a very difficult problem to solve. First, I didn't want to leave you out, Dr. Lee, if you wanted to get into the discussion of funding. I guess we know what your own personal criteria would be. But what do you think, if you want to answer, what do you think investors are looking for?
I think they are looking at the people, and then technology strengths. that is, of course, covered by the patent portfolio and maps, and of course, business plans and business strengths. I think three need to be accomplished at the same time, not just one. And for the third part, business plan, actually the financial sector can help them to achieve and advance towards the direction that is desirable. But the first two, that is people and patent portfolio to start with, need to be there. Otherwise, there's no sense to invest anything.